Okay, so I'm just about ready to start Unconditional Surrender Case Blue. I'm kind of excited about it. Had some trouble with the rules, there's no question there, and I still don't have a full grasp on them. The procedural rules format is difficult for me, and these are very different it's a very different type of game than I'm used to. So there's a lot to kind of grasp here. But I've put out the production points, i.e. I've gone through the weather segment, which is going to be good weather no matter what in this the July to September turns, and the economic I've gotten into place. Now it's the operations segment, and now I got to figure out what to do. The Axis goes first, and well, they have an air unit here, and the hints suggest doing an airstrike there. So, sort of as an initial thing, knock out the Russian capability to fight in air combat. Let's do that! Because honestly, I'm kind of grasping at straws trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And, you know, that's kind of the beauty of a very new design like this is, whoa, how do I get my head around it, basically? So, well, we're giving a little start there. So let's fire that off. Air attacks don't cost me any production points to make. It's going to cost me to unmake them. Here's the question. Does it cost me a sortie to fly? Do I immediately take a penalty there? Because right now I have a 2-point advantage, essentially, on top of being in a thingy. Alright, I'm going to have to look that up, and flipping through this is difficult. I'm going to dislodge my game if I do. So hold on. From what I can tell, and I'm just, you know, I always have a trouble here, but an air support, so either airstrike or air support doesn't automatically add a sortie. But if only one side provides air support, it adds a sortie to the activation roll. And in air strike, there's no sortie cost there. So my first activation, in an activation I can fly the same plane only once per activation, but it looks like I'm able to fly. So each air unit can only perform one action per activation, but it looks to me like I can activate an air unit more than once. So if it's successful in knocking the Russians out, I could still provide air support, presumably, with it during a combat or something. Air support happens during a combat, actually. It's a little weird. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're going to do, because we're going to fly. Now, we need to be, for the airstrike, we need to be within 7 hexes of our enemy air unit. We are. And we want to try to knock it out. Alright, so we'll do that. We get +2 for the Germans. They're the attackers here. And we have a penalty for sorties, which is -2 for the Germans, puts them back down to 0, and -4 for the Russians. So the Russians are going to get a -4 on their die roll. I wonder what that means. There's no division here, so it looks like we're just going to roll. So let's take a look at the German roll first, which is just going to be natural. And they get a big 2. And the Russians are going to be at -4. That mins out at 1. So they get a 1, we get an asterisk. Both sides are going to add a sortie. So I need 3 sorties here for the German, and 5 sorties for the Russians. Well, that was fun. Let's do it again. It's another activation, right? That's the way I see it. Maybe I'm missing something. Yeah, each unit's action must be completed before another is activated. So I'll activate it again. I want to knock the Russians' air power out because I don't want them using defensive air support. It's bad enough they have this tank ability. I'm not quite sure what that's going to do. That gives... I ought to be aware of it. That's going to create an infantry unit into a tank, and that can create a +2 to one of their defensive bonuses. That's bad enough that they can throw that into one attack. Okay, so we're going to do another sortie, and now the Germans are going to be at -1, and the Russians are going to be at -5, and the German roll gives them a 4, and the Russian roll gives them a 1 again. That's a DR +2. Well, what does that mean? The attacker adds a sortie, and the defender is going to add 2 sorties. Well, this isn't very good for the Germans, because they've knocked the Russian unit up to 6 sorties, which means it's not going to be able to do anything. But they've taken 2 sorties on their own to attack it. Alright, well, let me think some more. Well, there's really no answer to it but to test it out. So, although we did the air attack, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to launch an attack from this German unit, and I'm going to activate him. Now, the cost to activate him, he's a mobile unit, that's going to cost me 2 of my German supply points. Now, that's painful, and I'm a little worried about how much I'm going to overreach here, but my goal is to drive him back so that I can isolate this unit, perhaps. Actually, maybe I want to... Nah, this one will just drive back to there. But this one, I believe, if I understand the retreat rules, has to go directly back. Maybe I'm mistaken there. Retreat... No, the defender just retreats to move away from the attacking unit. So he could go 1 hex, he could drop up here, and that's not gonna... My only way is to destroy that unit. Jeez. That's gonna be tough. Oh boy. See, I don't want to make an attack across the river. I'm assuming that's going to have a penalty, right? I'm not sure. Seems like it should. Mountain or rivers, a -1. That doesn't seem wise. So maybe what I can do is drive this away and then push down there. Let's see if that works. So we'll spend those points again. I moved them back. And we'll try it. So we're going to launch a mobile attack there. Well, let's look at our movement points. First of all, we have a 10-point movement allowance. So, well, this says movement used, so I'll do it that way. Now, to move into this hex, this is attacking a clear hex. It's going to cost us 1 plus another 1 because it's fair conditions. So that's going to cost us 2 of our movement. And we're doing a mobile attack here. Okay, great. At this point, I believe... Let's see. We do not have the attack subsection written out on here. It would be useful if that was kind of in one of the player aids, but I mean, there's a lot of player aid help here. At this point, each player, has to choose whether they're going to support. Now, the Russians have one support marker, this tank marker. I don't think they want to play it quite here. The Germans have a couple. They have these events, and they have this air marker here, which can sortie some distance. I don't remember if it's, I think it's 5 hexes. 2, 3, 4. So I can make it up to there. Alright. We'll launch the air there. Just because I want the odds to be pretty decent. Okay, well, according to this sucker, I'm going to charge that air, and we did not both commit an air unit, so there's not going to be an air combat. What there is going to be is the air unit has to spend a sortie, so it goes up to a 5, I guess, on sorties, and somewhere or another. Alright, let's look at the modifiers. +2 for German unit. Okay. And we have these here. The Germans are attacking. It's a tank unit attacking a hex in fair weather. That's another +2 for the Germans. I threw air support in. That's 2 more for the Germans. So the Germans are a +6 here. The Russians, as far as I can see, have no bonus, which makes sense. This is not an assault, so I don't worry about these. So I've got a +6 to the die roll for the Germans. Let's see how good that is. They roll a 5, so that's an 11. And for the Russians, there's no bonus, but there's no... Oh, that's not good. So we get a DE +4. The attacker receives... ground combat results. DE. Defender eliminated. Eliminate the defender, and then if it was a more mobile attack, put a no enemy zone of control marker in there, which is important. And now the Russians have just been eliminated. So I sort of did get this isolation I want if I place things right. Now I've got to be careful here. Eliminated unit goes over on the Russian side. I've got a lot of movement left. I'd kind of like to keep attacking. So I can move into here. I've already paid for that. 1, 2. He's not isolated, but I can attack him. And I spent 2 more movement points there. Okay. So since I've moved into position here, that I can launch another attack, and that'll cost me 2 more movement points to attack. 1 for the hex, 1 for attacking in the good weather. And now we get to put our markers. And here we're both going to go with a yes. And the Russians are going to commit their event, and that's going to show up later in the game turn track. And let's see. The Germans are going to commit their air sortie again, and they're up to the big 6 sorties, which means they don't get to do anything. Alright, well, we got +2. We got to restart this. Got +2 for a German unit. It's a tank unit defending, so the Russians get a +2 as well. We've got air support, so the Germans get another +2. And I think that's all we have here. The Germans can't use the ground support. That's only for their allied units. So we got +4 for the Germans, +2 for the Russians. That's not good for the Germans. They got a 5, and the Russians got a 6, which means we get an asterisk. No effect unless the unmodified die rolls were 1 and 6. They were not. So that didn't work. Well, I'm going to make another attack at 2 more movement point cost, and neither side has anything they can commit now. By the way, I have to deal with this. The event shows back up, and this may have been a bad choice to use the armor at this point. The armor shows up on the next turn, so that recovers more quickly than some of the events. Some of them you got to roll a die to see how many turns they're going to be out. Okay, so neither one put it in. We're attacking again. Essentially, we know what the odds are. It's 2 less for each because no air combat, no air bonus, no armor bonus. I cheated. I forgot about 2 points for the German tank as well. So we weren't at a 5-6. We were at a 7-6. It's the same result, but now I'm at +4 to +0 on the die roll. And I get a 9 for the Germans, which sounds decent. Looks like no matter what, I get a good effect. And a 4 for the Russians, which means I get a DR2. DR, the defender has to retreat a hex away, and the plus doesn't do any additional damage. So the Russians have to pull back. Now they have problems here. They are not isolated. We didn't get that bonus. But I don't know that they can retreat. Let's take a look at the retreat rules. Unit cannot retreat into a hex containing an enemy zone of control unless it contains a friendly city. Well, none of them do. So that means it takes a step loss. And now, I believe I want to continue my attacks. Because here's the thing. If I move, I can isolate maybe this unit for an attack. But if I succeed in this attack, I can isolate this unit, and I think that's kind of advantageous. So let's see where we get. We're going to spend 2 more movement. Whoop. 2 more movement up to our 10. And where do we get? Well, we're at the same +4. Neither one has anything they can commit again. And the Russians have a reduced strength unit, so they're at -2 now. They're less likely to do any damage. And now the Germans are at +4. They get a 10, that's going to be very good. To a 1, that's a DE +4. The Russian unit is destroyed. And the German gets to advance, and I think there's another no enemy zone of control, but that's not going to matter. Do I want to advance is the question. I don't see an advantage to it. I think we want to stay here because we've got him isolated either way. Now I've got to kind of flip this unit to indicate that it's been used. I'm not sure. I'll put it upside down completely. These no enemy zone of controls go away. And it's still the German turn. I'm going to load this one up because, well, it's becoming a fairly long video. I just want to detail what's going on and how the basic mechanisms are working for this. The next one we'll see another another Axis unit moving, but we're not sure how that's going to work out.